everybody, I'm Jason Harwood. Welcome to Excited About the Gospel. Oh, we have some exciting stuff this week. I'm excited because this week we're studying Abinadi. What a powerful leader. A guy that we can say, man, I want to be like Abinadi. We can listen to him, we can learn from him, go in and read his words, and it just gets you excited. You feel like, oh my gosh, this is a guy that stood for what he believed in. And that's really what we're going to talk about this week as we talk about Abinadi is courage. Courage. The Cowardly Lion was my favorite character in The Wizard of Oz because he needed courage. Okay, Mosiah 17. This is where we're going to look at some powerful verses about Abinadi. But even early in his mission, he's so courageous because he comes in Mosiah chapter 11 and he teaches and he's thrown out of the city and told never come back. If you come back, we're going to kill you. But then after the space of 2 years, Abinadi came among them in disguise, that they knew him not, and began to prophesy among them, saying, I love this first line. This is so funny, because he takes the time, he goes through the effort, he does everything necessary to set up this whole disguise. And then look at this first line. Thus hath the Lord commanded me, saying, Abinadi, go and prophesy unto this people. He just ruins the whole disguise. I mean, I guess you got to get in disguise to get into the city, but he doesn't pretend to be anything different than he is. Think of that. Think of that line about courage. He doesn't pretend to be anything different than what he is. The courage to be authentic, the courage to embrace who he was and what he believed. Right from the beginning, he has this courage to say, yeah, I had to put on a disguise just to get in the city because you guys told me if I came back to the city, you're going to kill me. But the second he starts preaching, he maybe threw off whatever cloak, disguise, whatever, because he's like, hey, God said to me, Abinadi, go. And he tells them, this is who I am. He's not pretending to be anything he's not. That's very important. Think about that this week. The courage to just, whatever disguise maybe we put on ourselves, whatever disguise we do to hold back, whether it's our faith, whether it's our testimony of Jesus, whether it's the fact just that we belong to the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints, whether it's that we're going to live by high moral standards, maybe sometimes we just put on some different disguises. And no, Abinadi just threw that disguise off and said, this is who I am. Makes me think of Mormon when he's writing in the book of 3rd Nephi, I am a disciple of Jesus Christ. Abinadi just comes right out and says that. Now, he preaches, they're going to kill him. They tell him, if you will renounce everything that you've said, we won't kill you. And now, Mosiah 17:9, Abinadi said unto them, I say unto you, I will not recall the words which I have spoken unto you concerning this people, for they are true. And that ye may know of their surety, I have suffered myself that I have fallen into your hands, yea, and I will suffer even until death, and I will not recall my words, and they shall stand as a testimony against you. The courage of testimony. When I think of Abinadi, I think of courage of testimony. He just says, right from the beginning, God told me Abinadi, and boom, disguise gone. And then right at the end, he says, I'm not going to recall my words because they are true. True to the truth that our parents, for which martyrs have perished, as the song says, true to the faith. True to the faith that our parents have cherished. True to the truth for which martyrs have perished. Abinadi is that one of those martyrs that just stood true to truth and said, this is truth and I will not recall. And 10 verses later in verse 20, he suffers death by fire, having been put to death because he would not deny the commandments of God, having sealed the truth of his words by his death. Powerful example of courage. And there are so many great examples of courage. So we look at some Bible stories. Let's look at some Bible stories about courage. Joshua 2 is an interesting one. Joshua 2, Joshua and the children of Israel, they come in and they're kind of wiping out some people. And they come up against the city Jericho, and they're going to have to go to battle against the city of Jericho. But they send in some spies first. And so they send in these two spies, and they come to the house of a woman named Rahab. Rahab, who knows? And in the city of Jericho, and she sees these spies that they're the children of Israel. Now, word has gotten to Jericho that the children of Israel have a big bad army, and they're wiping some people out, and they're coming for Jericho next. And so Rahab sees these spies, knows what's coming, and she says, man, everybody in this town is freaked out because of the Israelites. We know you're coming. We know that you're going to destroy us. We know it's going to be bad. So these spies are staying at her house, and some Jericho soldiers come by, and they say, bring forth the men that are come to thee, which are entered into thine house, for they be come to search out all the country. And the woman took the two men and said thus, there came men unto me, but I know not whence they were. Technically, does she lie? Yeah, she does. Well, I don't know, whatever. So then they shut the gates. All these things happen. They shut the gates. They go looking for the guys. They're looking everywhere for them. She takes them and hides them on her roof, and hid them with the stacks of flax, which she had laid in order upon the roof. They were laying flax up on the roofs to dry out in the sun. And so she hides them up there, and the men pursued after them. And after they pursued out of them, they shut the gate. So now the spies are shut inside of the city, and all the soldier guys are going out towards where the children of Israel are camped to try to catch the spies before they get back to camp. And Rahab tells them, okay, I'm going to let you down over the wall of the city. Her house is on the wall of the city, it says, but I'm going to do this because of what I did for you. I need a promise from you. I need you to promise me that when you come back and destroy this city, you will save alive my father, my mother, my brother, my sisters, and all that they have, and deliver our lives from death. So the two spies say, deal. You saved our lives. We're going to save you and your family. And they give her a red ribbon and say, tie this on your house, bind this line of scarlet thread in the window which thou didst lay us down by, and thou shalt bring thy father, thy mother, thy brother, and all thy father's house. And it shall be that whosoever shall go out of this house, his blood shall be upon his head, but whosoever shall be with thee in the house, his blood shall be on our head. And this is an interesting Bible story and then it happens. The children of Israel come and they destroy Jericho and they save Rahab and her family alive. If you go read in the New Testament, Rahab becomes actually an ancestor of Jesus. She is an ancestor of Boaz, who marries Ruth, and Ruth is that Ruth and Boaz are ancestors of Jesus. So it's really weird that through this story, you get the lineage all the way down to Jesus. But interesting courage here. Like when you think about Rahab and her courage, what was her courage? Her courage was towards her family, really. Like really, that's what she was being courageous for. She was saying, I'm going to be courageous to save my family because I know bad things are coming. And so I'm going to take courageous action to save my family. She's called out in the book of Hebrews, chapter 11. In Hebrews chapter 11, Paul is writing about all of these people who had faith. And he talks about, in verse 31, by faith, Rahab perished not with them that believed not when she had received the spies with peace. She obviously became a story of some particular importance to the Israelites and to the Jews, as Paul is writing about this, of her courage in saving these spies. Why? She took significant, courageous action to save her family. Think about your own families. Think about your own lives and think, man, what is the courage? Abinadi was courageous for his testimony and his truth. Rahab was courageous to save her family. And what is the courageous action we can take? That's really exciting to think. I can take courageous action and save my family, just the way Rahab did. And not just her family then, but look at the lineage, look at the posterity down to Boaz, who marries Ruth, and down from Ruth to Jesus, this courageous action that she took. And we think, well, what was the courageous action? Standing in the face of Jericho guards. If they had found her, they probably would have killed her. If they had found the spies that she was hiding there, they would have killed the spies and they probably would have killed her. So in the face of immediate threat, she took courageous action to save her family. That's great courage. Daniel 3. Daniel, there are so many courageous actions in Daniel from the very beginning when they decide not to eat the king's meat, but instead eat pulse. And they say, I promise everything will work out. To Shadrach, Meshach, and Abinadi, there's this law that at a certain time, everyone has to worship a graven image in Daniel 3:15. They're going to play some music. Everybody has to worship the graven image. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abinadi, no, they're not doing that. And because of that, they're going to be thrown in the fire. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abinadi, the king questions them, and they answer and say to the king, we are careful not to answer thee in this matter. If it so be, our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace. He will deliver us out of thy hand, O king. But if not, and there's great general conference talks and all sorts of great things about commentary about those words. But if not, be it known unto thee, O king, that we will not serve thy gods, nor worship the golden image thou hast set up. We are going to serve God. Courage in God's power, and really important here for Shadrach, Meshach, and Abinadi, courage in God's timing. Was it their time to die? They don't know. Was it God's time to do a miracle? They don't know. Was it their time to just die and go on and serve God at the next phase of existence? They don't know. But they are going to be courageous in the face of unknown, trusting in God's timing, God's goodness. A good friend of mine has a sign up in her house that says, I'm not scared about the next chapter because I know the author. And that's Shadrach, Meshach, and Abinadi to me. Not afraid of what was going to come next. They were about to get thrown in a fiery furnace. That's a bad way to go. Very painful. But they say, hey, we're going to be courageous in the face of that. Is God going to save us? We don't know. God can save us. But if not, we want to die letting it be known we're not going to serve false idols. We're going to serve God. And even if we have to die for it, that's what we're willing to do. We're going to act in the face. It's so good. That's such courage of the unknown. There may be some unknowns in your life. Isn't that exciting? It's kind of exciting to think there are some significant unknowns in my life. I don't know what's happening next with my kids. I've got teenagers. I don't know what's happening next with them. Can God help them? Can God help put the spirit and a testimony into their hearts? Can they act to build their own personal testimonies? Can they stay safe from many of the calamities that face our world today? They can, but do I know that's going to happen? No, but if not, I'm just going to do my best, and I'm going to love and care about them and hope that they feel of my love and God's love. And, do I know what's going to happen with my job? Do I know what's going to happen with my health? Do I know what's going to happen with my family? Do I know what's going to happen economically? And do I know what's going to happen with wars and rumors of wars? No, I don't. But I can be courageous like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abinadi. How about Daniel? Daniel is full of courage. The book of Daniel and Daniel the prophet. Darius makes this law. You can't pray. Look what Daniel does when he says you can't pray. When Daniel knew that the writing was signed, he went into his house, his windows being open in his chamber towards Jerusalem. He kneeled upon his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his God as he did aforetime. Then these men assembled and found Daniel praying and making supplication before his God. And then they go to King Nebuchadnezzar and say, Daniel's been praying, got to throw him in the lion's den. And Nebuchadnezzar's like, dang. But look at that courage. Isn't that exciting, the courage of Daniel to keep the commandments, to say, no matter what, I'm keeping the commandments. No matter what, I have courage in prayer. I have courage in the commandments. I have courage in just doing what's right, doing what I always do. choose the right, let the consequence follow. It doesn't matter what's happening around me. It's what's going on inside of me. You see, Daniel used to pray all the time with his windows open. That's how Darius knows how to catch him. How did Darius know to do a law about prayer? Because Daniel was always praying. He would open his windows in his chamber and kneel and pray 3 times a day and give thanks unto his God. That's what he was doing before. And then the rules change, and he still does it as he did aforetime, just like he always did. Just like he always did, Daniel keeps doing what he has always done. The courage of consistency. I love it. The courage of consistency. When you say, hey, I'm going to just be courageous to just pray every day. That takes courage. Read my scriptures every day. That takes courage. Go to church every week. That takes courage. Do one small act of kindness every day. That takes courage. Small things done courageously. What was Daniel's big act of courage? He prayed. Now, it was an act of courage because of everything going on around him. But in essence, Daniel's huge act of courage was saying a prayer. That's powerful. Okay. Done with Bible stories. How about a Doctrine and Covenants? How about a church history story about courage? Oh, every time I think about courage, I think about these 2 sisters. If you're on YouTube, I'm showing you the picture. And if you're not, just imagine the picture. Imagine for a moment a beautiful cornfield with 2 lovely little sisters running into the cornfield with angry, ugly, bearded men with axes chasing them. Oh man, what a terrible time in church history. This is Independence, Missouri, at the time when the saints were being persecuted and tarred and feathered, and one day they come to destroy the printing press. And what's being printed at the time is the Book of Commandments. This is kind of the predecessor. This came before the Doctrine and Covenants. And they had about 64 current sections, basically sections 1 to 64. And Mary and Caroline were watching this, and they see the men destroying the printing press and throwing the pages outside, the pages of the Book of Commandments. And they decide, we're going to go save those pages. Here's what Mary says. My sister Caroline and myself were in a corner of a fence watching them. When they spoke of the commandments, I was determined to have some of them. Sister said, if I went to get any of them, she would go too, but, she said, they will kill us. Well, their backs were turned, prying out the gable end of the house. We went, got our arms full, and were turning away when some of the mob saw us and called on us to stop. But we ran as fast as we could. 2 of them started after us. Seeing a gap in the fence, we entered into a large cornfield, laid the papers on the ground, and hid them with our persons. The corn was from 5 to 6 feet high and very thick. They hunted around considerable and came very near us, but did not find us. Oh my gosh, talk about courage. These 2 powerful girls, Mary and Caroline, saving the Book of Commandments from an angry mob, destroying the printing press. Now, these 2 girls, mind you, they've seen terrible things. They've seen people tarred and feathered living in and around Independence at the time. That had happened to church leaders while they were there. They had seen people, drug out of their homes and beaten. They had seen houses and things and fields burned and destroyed and pillaged. They had seen terrible things, and they said, we're going to do it. The girls risked their lives, but saved what would later become part of the Doctrine and Covenants. Part of the saved papers were made into 2 little books and presented to Mary and Caroline as a token of gratitude for what they had done. Had they not rescued these pages, we might not have half of the Doctrine and Covenants today. What a story of courage. The courage to decide to stand up for what's right, to stand up and say, and really, why did they do it? Because they loved God's word. They loved the scriptures. They loved the prophet. They loved the words of the prophet. And courage to love God's word, courage to stand with and for the prophet, courage to stand with and for God in the face of literal death. 2 great quotes. Here we go. W. Craig Zwick. He's from a talk called We Will Not Yield, We Cannot Yield. W. Craig Zwick. Abinadi was a man of unwavering courage who stood for truth when it was unpopular to do so. As he courageously called the people to repentance, he knew his own life was in jeopardy. In your mind's eye, you can see the riveting scene of Abinadi, who had just had the death sentence pronounced upon him. He had an opportunity to save himself by denying his faith and testimony, but instead he fearlessly proclaimed, I say unto you, I will not recall the words which I have spoken unto you concerning this people, for they are true. We may not have to lose our lives in defense of truth, but we can, just like Abinadi, draw ourselves to our full stature and with full heart and energy, valiantly proclaim that Jesus Christ is our Savior. He was and is the Son of the Almighty. He lives and he loves us. How exciting is that? How do you do that today? How do you do today what Abinadi did then? Draw yourself up with your full heart and energy and valiantly proclaim that Jesus Christ is our Savior. How do we do that today? And I encourage you to have the courage to do so. I encourage you to think about how you might do that. Courage for what is true, like Abinadi had. Courage to take the action to save your family, like Rahab. Courage in God's timing and in the unknown, like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Courage of consistency, like Daniel. And courage for the love of God's word, the love of the prophet, like Mary and Caroline. How about this from President Monson, The Call for Courage, April 2004. We can all be fortified by the words of Moses. Be strong and of a good courage. Fear not, nor be afraid. For the Lord thy God, he it is that goeth with thee. He will not fail thee, nor forsake thee. He did not fail them. He will not fail us. He did not forsake them. He will not forsake us. It is this sweet assurance that can guide you and me in our time, in our day, in our lives. Of course, we'll face fear, experience ridicule, and meet opposition. Let us have the courage to defy the consensus, the courage to stand for principle. Courage, not compromise, brings the smile of God's approval. Courage becomes a living and an attractive virtue when it is regarded not only as a willingness to die manfully, but also a determination to live decently. I love that. A determination to live decently. That takes courage. A moral coward is one who is afraid to do what he thinks is right because others will disapprove or laugh. Remember that all men have their fears, but those who face their fears with dignity have courage as well. Reminds me of that great line that courage is not the absence of fear, it's the actions you take when feeling fear. The courage of Abinadi to just pull off whatever disguise he had on at the beginning of his story in Mosiah chapter 11 and say, God has told me to come and tell you this, and the courage that he had. Oh, sorry, chapter 10. I said 11, chapter 10. No, he did. Now it's 12. He starts in 11. That's 11 is where he first teaches. 12 is where he comes back. And then the courage in 17 to say, I will not recall the words which I have spoken unto you, for they are true. Courage of testimony, courage of God's timing, courage to take action of faith for your family, courage of consistency, courage to love God's word and love God's prophets. And as President Monson said, the courage to have a determination to live decently. Courage. I love that lesson from Abinadi. I'm excited this week because of the gospel and because of my opportunity this week to show that I can live with courage. Thank you for being a part of Excited About the Gospel. I'll see you next time.